just like having a life outside of fighting, just because sometimes it could be a lot. So what's your go-to?
Oh man, that's a good one. I don't know,
And
man.
a day later, I get a message from one of the producers. So I was, just a huge fan of the UFC. Basically, what happened was, I think my favorite hockey memories were just maybe, you know, who knows?
What was maybe the hardest thing for you when it comes to the Ultimate Fighter?
I don't think I fought to my full potential, and that's been eating me up ever since I.
All right, guys, this is Crazy Kev here, and I'm here with Tom Theocharis. Tom, how are we doing, my man?
I'm doing well, brother. How are you doing?
Doing good, man. I can't complain. And Tom, man, talk to us a little bit more about how you kind of get into fighting and what's maybe next for you, my man.
So I was, just a huge fan of the UFC. Basically, what happened was, I was 15 years old and randomly turned on Spike TV, and boom, there was Ultimate Fighter on TV, and so I just became completely obsessed with the TV show, and I started buying the DVDs, and I think at that time it was season 6 with Matt Serra and Matt Hughes. So basically, just started watching the UFC. I wasn't even, or sorry, watching the Ultimate Fighter. I wasn't even watching the UFC pay-per-views. I was just strictly watching the TV show. Then obviously I started watching the pay-per-views and just got completely dialed into it. And next thing you know, a year later, I just began kickboxing, and here we are now. So it's been quite a journey.
Yeah, it's definitely been quite a journey, man. And are you able to talk to us about what's maybe next for you as well, too, in the future?
I'm not sure if I'm able to do that right now at the moment, to be honest with you, but just have to let the show kind of air and then sort of just go from there. So, unfortunately,
All good, all good, definitely all good,
yeah.
man. And in the past, you also mentioned when you were around 15, you were playing a little bit of hockey. What's maybe some of your favorite hockey memories, my man?
Man, just I think my favorite hockey memories were just gathering all my friends and playing road hockey every single day when it was nice out in the summertime. Man, I was just a huge hockey fan growing up, and that was my first sort of passion, I would say, was playing hockey with my friends. And yeah, like I basically UFC just took over when I was 15. I quit hockey at the time. Just stumbled upon the Ultimate Fighter TV show, like I stated previously, and then things just kind of escalated from there. I joined a gym, ended up like sparring more. I ended up taking some kickboxing fights and some amateur MMA fights, and then just ended up fighting for a Canadian amateur title at 155 pounds. Flew out to like Calgary, then made my pro debut. Started fighting pro. Fought all over the world, trained all over the world, and then yeah, I just made it to the Ultimate Fighter, and so it's been quite an experience.
Yeah, no, that's definitely awesome, man. And when it comes to you, man, I was listening to another interview. I believe you were like a big McDonald's guy. Are you able to talk us a little bit more about what your go-to meal is?
Yeah, well, honestly, I kind of like Wendy's more, to be honest with you.
Wendy's, okay.
I like Dave's Doubles. They actually came out with these buffalo chicken strips out here in Canada. There's a Wendy's right across the street from me, which is quite dangerous. But yeah, McDonald's is pretty damn good too. And so I love food, and whatever type of food, if it's shitty, whatever, I love stuff in my face. So
Fair enough, fair enough. What do you typically do after a fight, man? When you're hanging out with your friends, or just what do you kind of do when your fights also?
yeah, like I'll definitely go out, have some drinks with my friends for maybe, you know, who knows? Who knows? Maybe a few days, few weeks, just kind of just take a few weeks off, have some drinks with my friends, eat some food. Because in fight camp, you're just so dialed in, right? And like you don't really have a life. And then so when you're outside of training camp, you kind of just, take things in it from a different approach. I kind of just try to get all of my, quality time with my friends and family in that sort of time span when I'm not in training camp, just because when I know when I'm in training camp, I have a strict diet, have to be in bed early, up early, training 2 to 3 times a day. And, there's really isn't much else going on in my life. And so it's nice to kind of like live life a little bit. I was in training camp from August up until the end of April when the show, when we finished the show, when we finished filming the show. I had a fight booked for October 28th. that fell through the day of the weigh-ins. And then I went right back into training camp because I was fighting again January 19th. So I didn't really have a break from August until April. And so, since then, since I've been back from the show, I've been trying to spend quality time with like my friends and family. I've been training, but like nothing too rigorous. Obviously working on my grappling and all that sort of stuff. But I'm just trying to like focus on sort of just like having a life outside of fighting, just because, sometimes it could be a lot. So.
Yeah, no, it definitely seems like a lot, man. And when you are hanging out with your friends, what's maybe your go-to drink, man?
I would say a vodka soda with a splash of cranberry. That's pretty damn
Nice.
good. Yeah, I like that one. What's your go-to?
Oh man, that's a good one. I don't know, man. I mean, I kind of like I like the Bud Lights. I'm not gonna lie, they're kind of my
Yeah,
go-to.
those are pretty
Uh,
good too. Yeah. So.
yeah, definitely solid, man. I definitely like it. And man, when it comes to the Ultimate Fighter, I mean, what's it kind of like to go on there and like the tryouts and stuff? I mean, what do you kind of have to do to kind of get noticed and recognized?
Yeah, it was I'm glad you mentioned that. It was a pretty it was like a pretty, like, I would say it was a roller coaster because obviously there was, how they do it is there's an application process. So you submit your application, you have an interview, they schedule an interview for you, and then they go like, hey, like if we really like you, you have to be ready for the second interview on this date. And so what had happened was I had done my first interview, I think it was the beginning of January, potentially, I think it was. And then I had fought January 19th. And then right after that fight, I think it was January 24th, they were doing the second interviews. And I had asked my manager at the time, or like my current manager at the time in January. I go, hey, like, have you heard anything from them? And he goes, no, let me double check. Then they actually messaged him right after he messaged them, and they said, hey, like, we really like your fighters, but like, we're not going to move on with them. Like, we really like Tom, but like, we're not going to move on with him at this time. So I was like, oh, like, that sucks. Then a day later, I get a message from one of the producers. They're like, hey, Tommy, like, we really liked you. We want you to do the second interview. I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy. And so it was like, I thought I was out, and then I'm back in it, did the second interview, and they don't really say much. They're just like, hey, like, would you be ready to fly to Vegas on this date? Obviously I'm going to be, I'll be ready. And so they would just kind of send you things to sign and like, a bunch of paperwork asking if we had visas and that sort of stuff. And then, like, we get a call from one of the, I don't know what you'd call her, like one of the travel, like she works with the Ultimate Fighter. Basically, like, she'd call and say, hey, like, do you have any medications you take? What's your nearest airport and this sort of stuff. And then kind of ask like, hey, like, am I still on the show? Like, what's going on here? And they're like, oh no, like, nothing's official, but you got to be ready, this and that. There's still cuts to make. And so you're still kind of like in the gray area of like, hey, like, am I going? And then the week of when you're supposed to leave, they actually send you an email saying like, hey, this is, you have to do these home videos. So like scrambling to do these home videos, and then finally got my flight information, and then sort of went from there, went to Vegas for the hotel. We stayed in a hotel for a week. And then what happened was they do all your medicals, and there were still cuts to make. Some guys got cut. Then obviously, I was lucky enough to make the cut. And then a few days later, you kind of moved in the house. So it was a huge roller coaster for me. You don't really know you're like officially on the show until like 2 or 3 days before moving into the house. So
That's incredible. That's definitely a pretty long process, man. And
yeah.
on top of all that, I mean, like, who's kind of watching you and stuff? Like, do you have to do like any sort of like wrestling, striking drills or anything like that to kind of show them what you got?
No, because at today's day and age, there's just so much footage, and like they're like everybody's tapology is very extensive, and like everyone's got Sherdog, and there's a lot of footage of people, and there's records are available. It's not really like back in the day where they'd have like physical tryouts, just because I think that's obviously like very difficult to kind of to navigate in that sort of stuff. And especially for this season, because it was an international cast, and so like that would have been quite impossible to kind of just have every fighter from every different country come to the United States to kind of to do a tryout. Logistically, it just wouldn't make sense. And so I think they've taken a different route to kind of do things. Like back in the day in like 2008, there wasn't much fight footage of people. Like there wasn't UFC Fight Pass. YouTube wasn't like too big at the time. And so obviously they've taken a different path and different route to kind of find fighters. So
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been growing a lot. And with the Ultimate Fighter, I mean, you don't have like any phones or TVs and stuff, but I mean, what was maybe the hardest thing for you when it comes to the Ultimate Fighter?
definitely like not having a phone was difficult for me. I really do use my phone a lot and talk to people, like talk to my friends, talk to my family all the time. And one thing that a lot of people I don't, and even I didn't expect this, we weren't allowed to listen to music just because of copyright purposes. And so like not listening to music was really tough. And for me, music is something that I'm listening to like all hours of the day. And so that was pretty tough. And obviously, just being kind of sequestered into a house and not really have much freedom. But that was something. Obviously, it was all well worth it. At the end of the day, it was an amazing experience, and so no regrets or anything like that.
Yeah, no, that's definitely incredible. And when it comes to the show, man, I mean, what's maybe some of the best things that you might have learned?
I definitely just learned a lot about myself and how to handle, pressure and to kind of, obviously I know what I need to work on. It's never really been a secret of mine. And so I just need to be more prepared for certain facets of MMA. 185 pounds, competing at that division is obviously something that I learned that it's not for me at all. Guys are really big and strong in that weight class, and I really like to kind of, with my fighting style as a kickboxer, being the longer guy and the stronger guy, it's something that really helps me just because, obviously fighting a big, heavy, stronger grappler, that's just not really my style, right? And so if I'm going to be able to kind of, fight a grappler, at least I'm going to be the bigger, stronger guy and use my I guess strength to kind of muscle through things and that sort of stuff. And so there isn't that much of a gap between fighting at welterweight and fighting a high level wrestler just because I'm much more prepared at that weight class. And so yeah, I learned definitely a lot about just myself as an individual and how to handle the pressure and how to handle being you know I guess in the UFC, just because there's just all eyes on you, right? Like fighting at the UFC Apex in front of Dana White. Like I didn't think it would be something that really would take that big of a mental toll on me, but it was like, holy shit, there's like all of Canada's watching you. All of Canada is, hoping that, you represent them really well. And that was something that I sort of just struggled with and kind of like fell like victim to is like, I felt like I didn't mentally prepare the right way, I would say, just because I didn't expect to feel that much pressure of being in the house. Like there's cameras everywhere, and obviously you want to compete really well. And, I just learned that, it's not fucking easy. So
Yeah, man, it's definitely not easy. And on top of that, I mean, obviously you've overcame a ton of adversity and everything like
yeah,
that. And you mentioned like dealing with anxiety and stuff. For
yeah.
people that might have anxiety when it comes to just fighting or maybe even life in general, what's maybe the best advice you give them to maybe overcome that anxiety that they may have?
Just to kind of follow a certain process that works best for you. Like for example, for me, I like to write things down. I like to keep a journal. Just doing little things like that, finding ways that make you feel better. And for me, obviously, training MMA is something that really helps me and keeps me focused and keeps me driven and gives me a purpose and structure. And so that really helps me with kind of just living life to my full potential. And so anyone dealing with anxiety just in general, I think finding a purpose and just working hard at something that you really are passionate about is really helpful. And from an MMA perspective, having a sports therapist really helps as well. Just learning to deal with it in different ways. Like I would deal with it in a different way than someone else who would deal with it. And so you just have to find your own ways to sort of deal with, struggles with depression and anxiety and that sort of stuff, just because there's not really like a manual or a playbook on how to deal with these certain things. It's just sort of whatever works for you. And, obviously things work differently for other people. So.
Yeah, that's definitely important, man. And I've talked to a couple athletes that mentioned like these sports at like the people I guess that help you on your mental state and stuff.
Yeah.
I guess what do they kind of do behind the scenes to kind of help you like kind of keep your mental state on track when it comes to fighting?
Yeah, so I have a sports therapist that I work with once a week during training camp specifically. And so we kind of just go through different exercises and that sort of stuff. We meet occasionally when I'm not in training camp, but as far as, when I'm in training camp, it's just as important to meet for me to meet with him than to go to a wrestling practice, in my opinion, just because the mental side of competing at a really high level in MMA is a world of difference because obviously there's a lot of pressure on MMA fighters to compete really well. And if if you don't go out there and perform the way that you're supposed to be, then, like you never know when you're going to fight next. It could be 6 months, it could be a year, it could be 2 years. Like there's just so many different factors as opposed to a sport like hockey where, hockey's a very difficult sport. However, if you have a bad game on the Friday, you're going to play again on the Sunday. So you're able to kind of just get that bad taste out of your mouth like instantly, as opposed to MMA where like you don't know if you could be fighting for another year or so, right? Like there's just different there's it's a lot of pressure to go out there and perform and fight in front of people and that sort of stuff. But I really do enjoy fighting in front of a crowd, and I do really enjoy that aspect of MMA. So
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense, man. And on the show you mentioned you were training stuff with like Elias and stuff. He was a
yeah,
fantastic fighter as well
yeah, it
too.
was.
What's maybe some of your favorite memories that you had with him?
I'd say like just being out in Vegas with him, right before he passed away. As I mentioned on the show, that my girlfriend had passed away August 2021, and then I had went to Vegas with Elias in August, or sorry, not August, November 2021. So just like kind of two dudes that are like both fighters from Toronto, two Greek guys. Like he was like my older brother. Him and I just smoking weed together, smoking joints, having a good time, and like just training and just like spending quality time with each other. That was a lot of fun. And obviously like we'd go out in Toronto together, have a good time. And, just generally speaking, just like we had so many good times together. And, he was definitely a close friend of mine. And so it's just unfortunate how things unfolded.
Yeah, it's definitely unfortunate. And yeah, like I said, he was a fantastic fighter. I'm definitely glad like the UFC gave him a little tribute and everything like that. He was definitely a
Yeah.
fantastic dude. And I'm glad he had some cool memories to share with him, especially smoking the J's too. That's pretty funny
Yeah.
you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Big advocate of it. And
Yeah.
when it comes to like you, man, I mean, outside the cage, I mean, what do you typically like to do besides fighting, man?
I just like to hang out with like friends and family. I really do love to work out. Working out's a huge part of my daily routine. I do really love to train as well. That's a part of my daily routine. I like to go out, eat at restaurants, have some drinks with some friends. I love to travel, like to read, like to go shopping. Just typical stuff. So
Very nice, very nice. When it comes to reading, I mean, what's maybe some of your favorite books that you read?
I really like there's a book about an NHL player. It was an autobiography. Sean Avery is his name. He had a really good book. I really liked Michael Bisping's book. I've just always been a huge fan of Michael Bisping. Alexander Gustafsson had a really good book. Yeah, there's I really like reading autobiographies of athletes just so I could relate to them and kind of see where they're like how they think and that sort of stuff. And there's a really good one on a Canadian sprinter. Forget his name. I read it before my last fight. He's a really famous Canadian sprinter. His book was like really good too. It was eye-opening because he was talking about like having doubts in himself and this and that. And everyone kind of goes through that sort of stuff. And so it was interesting to hear his perspective on, having doubts in his sport and to see how successful he's been. And, because you look at some of these athletes and you're just like, man, that guy's like Alex Pereira, for example, he just looks like he's like bulletproof, like nothing could, stop the guy mentally, physically. But I'm sure he has his own doubts and his own demons and that sort of stuff. But he's probably got his own ways of dealing with that sort of stuff. And I'm just always trying to find ways of dealing with it for myself, like reading these books and trying to like analyze how these guys deal with it, how I deal with it. We're sort of just talking about, dealing with your anxiety earlier. Like I'm just always trying to find different ways of like dealing with my own demons, my own doubts, and reading those sort of books really helps. So
Yeah, no, 100%, man. And when it comes to like hockey and stuff, like you mentioned, do you happen to watch any of the NHL and stuff during your free
Uh,
time?
I used to watch it a lot more. I haven't lately, but I did watch the Edmonton versus Florida series just because it was awesome to see Edmonton, who's a Canadian team, make it to the finals. It was Game 7. Unfortunately, they lost, and they came back from a three game losing streak. They're 0-3, and Florida had the opportunity to basically go 4-0 in that series, but then they came back and made it very interesting. And so Canadians should be really proud of their performance.
Yeah, no, Canadians should definitely be very proud of their performance, man. And when it comes to like just fighting in general, do you happen to like watch any film on fighters? And if so, what's maybe your favorite fighter to watch?
Yeah, I watch film all the time. Obviously, I watch film whenever I'm competing against someone. I always kind of just like, I'm always sort of watching them, seeing what they like to do, seeing what type of fighter they are. But then also, as far as UFC fighters, I really, back in the day was like, I want to say, like Bisping was a really big favorite of mine. Anderson Silva, Rampage Jackson, Justin Gaethje's really fun. Donald Cerrone, those type of guys. Like I really liked Michael Bisping and in his story. Like first of all, he seems like a really cool guy outside the cage, outside of fighting, and secondly, like his story is amazing. How he persevered through so much, and he eventually, got the title and won it and nobody expected him to do that. And like I didn't even expect him to do that, and so that was a really inspiring story to kind of watch Michael Bisping get knocked out like completely cold at UFC 100, like just so badly. And he came back, won a few fights, lost, was getting so close to the title. He would lose. And then, eventually he made it, he climbed his way back up and won it. I just think it's an incredible story. So
It's definitely an incredible story, man. And I hope if you get that UFC call, I hope you end up meeting Michael Bisping because he
yeah,
definitely seems like a cool guy, man.
yeah, I would love to.
Yeah, that'd definitely be awesome, man. And one thing about me is I'm a Taekwondo instructor. I've been
Oh, nice.
teaching for 6 years, and I've been training for 19 years. I started when I was 5 years
Wow.
old. So martial arts is my life, man. And when it comes to like Taekwondo and all the different guys I got at my gym, what advice do you give them to keep on coming into the gym to keep on getting better and better every day?
Just consistency. Consistency is the biggest thing, and staying disciplined, and making sure you're not just doing the things in the gym. You got to be doing the things outside of the gym. So for example, eating a healthy diet, getting your quality sleep, watching your footage, watching other people's footage, and just kind of like living that martial arts lifestyle of just always looking to get better. Just because you're not at the gym doesn't mean there's not opportunities to get better. So for example, like having a healthy diet, eating properly, getting the proper sleep, always educating yourself on, even like the physiology of your body, like how your heart rate works and what spikes it, what lowers it, and that sort of stuff. And so just learning about the body and the mind. So a lot of things.
Yeah, no, I definitely think learning about the body and the mind is definitely important, and I definitely think that's a great message. And Tom, speaking of messages, man, what's maybe your final message out there for the fans watching this video?
I appreciate everyone's support. I'm really sorry that I didn't get the win, and I don't think I fought to my full potential. And that's been eating me up ever since I competed. That night. But fortunately, I have like an amazing support system. I've got nothing but positive messages, and I just want to appreciate everyone for being so positive and just being amazing. And that's sort of what's driven me my whole career. Is I've got such an amazing support system, and I want to let everyone know that I really do appreciate that.
Yeah, and Tom, I don't think you should apologize, man. You definitely faced a very tough opponent, and I
Yeah,
definitely think this is only going to help you get back stronger. And I'm looking forward to what's next, man. Like I said, I think you're an inspiration. That's why I want to have you on the show.
I
So
appreciate that,
thank you
man.
again for coming on the show, man. And like I
I,
said, you're
appre-
going to bounce back. Don't apologize,
I
man.
appreciate that, man. You're a great dude.
Yeah, 100%, man. Like I said, we'll stay in contact, and
Yeah,
whatever's next for you, we'll definitely have you back on if you're interested. You're the man.
I appreciate that. You're the man, Kev.
All right, man. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you
You
again for
too.
taking time and coming on a little early too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, man. Enjoy your day. Thanks again, my
You
man.
too. Bye bye.
Bye.